It's that time of year. Let's take a look at Scott's first round for 2022 next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Wednesday, September 29th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And the first 3 picks shouldn't really be arguable, I guess, at this point, because we've got a lot to learn in the offseason. But Fernando Tatis, Ronald Acuña, who tore his ACL back in July, and then Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who finally put together that monster season that some were expecting. What do you think about those top 3, Scotty?
Yeah, well, if we're thinking Roto, obviously prioritize the steals guys in Tatis and Acuña over Guerrero, who's not going to be a big contributor of stolen bases. Tatis obviously has the shoulder injury hanging over him. Is he going to have surgery? Is he not? Either way, that presents some concern heading into next season. But Acuña is the one I think people worry about most with the torn ACL. I know I've seen some early mock drafts. One in particular comes to mind where he's going at the end of round 1. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to approach him that way. Either he's going to be ready for the start of the season or he isn't. I'm obviously ranking him as if he is. And if we find out at the start of draft prep season that he won't be ready for the season, I'll move him down even lower than 12th overall. Right. So, an in or out approach, I think, makes the most sense.
4th, 5th, and 6th, you have Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, and Trey Turner, all 3 of which that can contribute power and speed. Soto, not as much. He's having a monster second half, while Ohtani has really slowed down in the second half. Scott, 228 batting average, 31% strikeout rate, albeit still with 12 homers and 12 steals. How worried are you about the second half for Ohtani?
I'm really not. I mean, the strikeout rate's not that much worse than it was in the first half. And I think when you have a strikeout rate as high as his, you're going to have stretches of the season where you're maybe a little bit colder and maybe he's worn down a bit from playing so much. That could be part of it. But just the power speed output is so high. And obviously that's so valuable in Roto. The upside, just as a batter, strictly as a batter for Ohtani, is in a different class from any other hitter you might consider ranking here, certainly in this format where the stolen bases are essential. And then, if you're talking about a league with daily lineup changes and you can get virtually all of Ohtani's pitching and hitting stats, then he probably goes number 1, not even as low as number 5.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you there. If it's a daily lineup league, Shohei Ohtani should be the first overall player in that format. 7th, 8th, and 9th, you have Jose Ramirez, Bryce Harper, and Mike Trout. Ramirez doing what he always does, lots of power and speed. Bryce Harper having a massive second half, 341 batting average with 19 homers and 6 steals. Mike Trout might surprise some people to see him this low. I think he's going to be really polarizing this offseason, Scott, because he's dealt with injuries pretty regularly the past 5 years or so, and I don't know how much he's going to run much anymore, especially coming off this calf injury. So how did you manage to get Mike Trout still in the first round here?
Well, I think it's been a few years since we've really been counting on Mike Trout for stolen bases, and the injuries he's had in the past, none of them have compelled us to drop him outside of the first round before. So I don't know that a calf injury that he's going to have had 10 months to recover from by the time things are starting again, I don't know that really needs to be anything we worry about. And as a hitter, he's still, if we're just talking about pure hitting, I'd still project him higher than anyone else, certainly on a per game basis. So I'm happy to take him as low as round 9, but you're right. He might slip even lower than this in some drafts just because he missed so much of 2021. I mean,
let's wrap up here with the end of your first round picks 10, 11, and 12. We have Bo Bichette, Jacob deGrom, and Freddie Freeman. 3 very different picks, I would say. Bo Bichette, I think, is the flashy pick. He's coming off his age 23 season, 25 homers, 24 steals at this point. He still could add to that total. Jacob deGrom, we obviously have the injury concerns. And then Freddie Freeman is he's just steady veteran, 300 batting average, 31 homers this year. So what do you think about these 3? I mean, deGrom is probably the one that stands out most given his injury.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Acuña, where we're going to have to find out more in the offseason. And I'm willing to adjust down if I need to. I think this is probably the highest I would go with deGrom because those concerns about his elbow aren't going to be completely relieved by the time draft season starts. I think for Acuña's knee, they could be, but not for deGrom's elbow. But if we hear promising things, I mean, he's still clearly the best pitcher in baseball. I think that's even clearer now than it was coming into this year. Bichette, I just want to point out, is probably the ranking that's most tailored for roto leagues specifically. You know, he doesn't walk a lot. Obviously, his stolen bases are factoring into me ranking him 10th. He might be more like a late second rounder in a points league.
For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast, where we actually talked about the first 2 rounds of Scott's mock draft on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. If you enjoyed the pod, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'll be back again on Friday morning. Bye-bye.